Scene opens perhaps with visuals of a happy couple, then slowly transitioning to a more somber tone. Mark and Sarah seemed to have it all. They were the couple everyone admired, the high school sweethearts who had built a beautiful life together. From the outside, their world was perfect. A charming house in the suburbs, 2 wonderful kids, and a love story that felt like it was straight out of a movie. Mark, a dedicated architect, worked tirelessly to provide for his family, while Sarah managed their home with a grace and warmth that made it the heart of their world. They hosted neighborhood barbecues, coached their kids' soccer teams, and their laughter often filled the quiet evening air. To everyone who knew them, they were the definition of a happy, stable family. But as is often the case, the most pristine surfaces can hide the deepest cracks. The first hint of trouble was subtle, almost unnoticeable. It started with Sarah's phone, which suddenly seemed to be glued to her hand. Late-night texts that she would quickly dismiss as messages from her book club, or hushed phone calls she'd take in another room claiming they were from her sister. Mark, trusting and unassuming, initially thought nothing of it. He was busy with a major project at work, a new library design that demanded his full attention. He believed in Sarah, in the life they had built. Why would he question a few odd texts? But soon, the small signs began to add up, forming a puzzle he wasn't sure he wanted to solve. The book club meetings became more frequent, stretching late into the night. She started taking more care with her appearance, buying new clothes and perfumes, not for their date nights, but for her evenings out. When Mark would compliment her, she'd smile, but her eyes wouldn't meet his. A distance began to grow between them, a quiet, cold space in the bed they once shared so warmly. He tried to bridge the gap, suggesting a weekend getaway, just the 2 of them. "I can't, Mark," she'd say, her voice distant. "The kids have their tournament and I have things to do." The excuses were always plausible, yet they felt hollow, like carefully constructed walls. The turning point came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Mark's meeting was cancelled, and he decided to head home early to surprise Sarah and the kids. As he pulled into the driveway, he saw a sleek, unfamiliar sports car parked out front. His heart began to pound a nervous rhythm against his ribs. He walked in quietly, the house strangely silent. He called out Sarah's name, but there was no answer. A strange feeling, a cold dread, washed over him. He walked upstairs, his footsteps echoing in the silence, and pushed open the door to their bedroom. And there it was. The undeniable proof. Her perfume hung heavy in the air, mixed with a cologne that wasn't his. On the bedside table, next to a half-empty glass of wine, was a man's watch. A very expensive, very distinctive watch. In that moment, Mark's world didn't just crack. It shattered. The image of the watch burned into his mind, a symbol of a betrayal so profound it stole the air from his lungs. He backed out of the room, his mind a whirlwind of confusion, anger, and a grief so deep it felt physical. He didn't confront her. He didn't scream or shout. He simply walked back out of the house, got in his car, and drove. He drove for hours with no destination in mind, the rhythmic swoosh of the windshield wipers counting each beat of his broken heart. The perfect life he thought he had was a lie. The woman he loved, the mother of his children, had broken their vows in the most devastating way. He spent the night in a cheap motel, the sterile room a stark contrast to the chaos in his mind. Sleep was impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that watch, that room, the ghost of another man in his home. Rage and sorrow warred within him. Part of him wanted to destroy everything, to expose her, to make her feel a fraction of the pain he was enduring. But then he thought of his children, of their innocent faces and happy smiles. What would a messy public divorce do to them? He couldn't bear the thought of putting them in the middle of a bitter fight. He knew then that revenge wasn't the answer. He needed a different path, one that would protect his kids and, in a strange way, preserve his own dignity. The next morning, Mark returned home. Sarah was frantic, her face pale with worry, or perhaps guilt. She bombarded him with questions. "Where were you? I was so scared." He looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw not the woman he had loved, but a stranger. He calmly walked past her and went into his study. For the next few weeks he was a ghost in his own home. He was polite but distant, a machine going through the motions of being a husband and father. He took the kids to school, helped with homework, and attended their games, but he said little to Sarah. His silence was a wall she couldn't penetrate, and it unnerved her far more than any angry outburst would have. During this time, Mark wasn't just wallowing in his pain. He was planning. He met with a financial advisor and a lawyer, quietly and discreetly. He meticulously documented everything, sorting through their finances, assets, and investments. He learned that Sarah had been using their joint accounts for lavish gifts and trips with her lover. The betrayal ran deeper than he could have ever imagined. But instead of rage, a cold, clear resolve settled over him. He was going to give her exactly what she wanted, but on his terms. The day came on their 15th wedding anniversary. Sarah, likely hoping for a reconciliation, had planned a small dinner party with their closest friends and family. The atmosphere was tense, but everyone was trying their best to act normal. After the main course, Mark stood up, clearing his throat. A hush fell over the room. Everyone expected a heartfelt speech, a toast to their marriage. Sarah looked at him, a hopeful, nervous smile on her face. "I have an announcement to make," Mark began, his voice steady and calm. "So, as an anniversary gift, I've decided to give her what she truly desires." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. He then slid a folder across the table toward Sarah. Confused, she opened it. Inside were signed divorce papers, along with a detailed financial settlement. He had split their assets exactly down the middle. But there was more. He had sold his shares in a tech startup he'd invested in years ago, an investment Sarah had always ridiculed as a waste of money. Those shares were now worth millions. He had already placed half of that money in a trust for their children. The other half was his. The house, which was in his name from an inheritance, he would keep for him and the kids. He had also included printouts of her credit card statements, highlighting the expensive dinners, hotel stays, and a receipt for a very distinctive, very expensive man's watch. The room was utterly silent. Sarah's face went from confusion to shock, to pale, horrified realization. Her lover, who was also at the party as a family friend, looked like he'd seen a ghost. Mark didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse or shame her. He simply laid out the facts, calmly and methodically. "I wish you all the best, Sarah," he said, his voice devoid of any anger, only a profound finality. "The kids and I will be staying here. You are free to go and start your new life." With that, he looked at his stunned friends and family and said, "Thank you all for coming. The party's over." He had not only exposed the truth, but he had done it with a surgical precision that left no room for argument or drama. He had taken control of the narrative, protected his children, and secured their future. His move wasn't about revenge. It was about release. It was a quiet, powerful act of self-respect that left everyone, especially his unfaithful wife, completely and utterly speechless.